Yeehaw! The KGC Show with Cowboy Caden. The KGC Show with Cowboy Caden. Everybody know, ohs. Everybody know, ohs. The KGC Show.
Hello, everybody. It's KGC Show here, and today I am joined by a very great guy. He's one of my favorite people, whether we're talking on Instagram or whether we're just talking in general. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to Danny for the amazing intro to the podcast. We love Danny. Uh, but most importantly, we just love great people. And this guy is one of them. But before we do that, if you are visually impaired and you can't see it, skip past this part because this part is not directed towards you. I'm going to send you to a spot. And this guy, he's a great fisherman because he is my father and he catches everything from tree branches to big old bass. And you can too. I'm going to send you over to Wolf Bite. That is at Wolf Bite or dot period Wolf Bite on Instagram and many more things. And you can talk to him on Facebook. You can talk to him at sales@wolfbite.com. Again, that's sales@wolfbite.com. Or you can visit his Instagram at wolf.bite on Instagram. And we're going to get straight into our guest here today. He's one of the best guests we've ever had on the show. And it sounds only his first time just chatting with him, hearing him for a while. And I can't wait to welcome him to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the great, the talented Trey Bryant. Trey, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to have you on my show, man. I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time now, and getting to see your work on Instagram and getting to see everything like that, man. It's just been great to have you on, man. So I'm
Yeah.
honored to.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much for asking me to come on. I'm excited to get into some of this stuff.
Yeah, man. Hey, talk to us a little bit about where you're calling us from here today.
Yeah, so I'm here at home sitting at my kitchen table, dining room table, in Williamsburg, Kentucky. So
How's the weather out there?
it has been pretty chilly this week, pretty chilly, pretty windy. Today it's cloudy, but it's actually a little bit warmer than it has been. So we always enjoy that.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about your music, man. Talk to us a little bit about how you got into that music.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been around music my whole life. My grandmother had a beautiful voice and was a beautiful pianist, and my dad also has a great voice and has, recorded some stuff, written a lot of stuff. So I feel like it just kind of got passed down genetically to me. But I started out playing in church a lot, different churches, and then I kind of started doing some coffee shop gigs when I was in college. I didn't really start singing until I was in college. I really was more of an instrumentalist, drummer, guitarist. I played a little bit of bass in college, and then started singing. And then in about October of 2020, I started playing some live acoustic gigs pretty regularly at some of the bars around this area. And so then we moved into kind of the country music space in 2020 and 2021. Started writing a little bit of country music, and then last year in 2020, I was able to put out a couple of singles, which I'm really proud of. One of them is called Kentucky Home, and the other one's called I Don't Want to Leave This Town. I'm super proud of those songs, but that kind of brings us up to today where we're kind of putting together a full band tour. We started that a couple of weeks ago, so we're kind of weekend warrioring it out at some out at some bars, and we're having a big time. So
Yeah, man, and I love all you. Like I said, I love all your stuff, man. And there's not, there's people I get on the show where I know all of their stuff, and then there are some people where I have to go research. And I know all of your stuff, and I know it by hand. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I love most about you is you talk about that gospel. Starting out at playing and singing at church. Hey, I got a question, man. Is that how you got? What direction are you taking your music down? I know you mentioned something about country, but you talked about singing in gospel or church. Is that some of your inspirations?
Yeah, it definitely, take some inspiration, especially instrumentally from some of the worship songs and stuff like that. But I do love gospel music, and I think, I would love to do some more like kind of gospel inspired country stuff.
Mm.
Um, because I just love that. I love the talent of the musicians in gospel music that you see a lot, and some of the things that those guys can do is absolutely ridiculous. But right now, the in terms of direction, we're kind of moving more into the country space. Country wasn't really something that I was very interested in until I was in we were in quarantine, and I was kind of starting to branch out. We were all kind of trying to figure out what to do to get us through COVID, and it was, playing music ended up being part of what was able to kind of move us through that. Um, and then country music kind of came out of necessity and playing these 3 hour long acoustic sets at bars where nobody really listened to anything I was singing because I wasn't singing any country music. So I started learning country. So um, I'd say that the direction that we're moving in is probably we're writing a lot right now too. So I would say that our direction is going to be more country focused and more kind of getting more content and more music put out for people to hear.
Well, man, I'm excited to hear what you got and follow you. Also, and I understand right now on your Instagram story because this is how much I follow you. I understand you guys got a contest going on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we just announced the winner of our Instagram Kentucky Home Derby Day giveaway, which was super exciting. It was an idea that my wife had. She's kind of in charge of all my marketing and social media and stuff like that. She does a great job. So she said we should do a giveaway for Kentucky Derby Week. So the Derby is today. We ran this contest all week. We announced a winner just a few minutes before we hopped on this interview Skype podcast. So I'm excited. I just shot a message to the winner. I haven't seen my phone's on Do Not Disturb, so I haven't seen if she's responded yet. But the winner is actually a person that she followed us in Nashville. The last time we were in town, we met some people at a Luke Combs concert, and then I played an acoustic show the next day, and they ended up coming out to the show and following me on Instagram. So they entered the contest and ended up winning. So they won some pretty cool stuff, I think.
Yeah, man, and talk to us a little bit about how you choose uh, those giveaways. Are they hard for you to choose like what you're gonna do for a giveaway, or do they just come pretty naturally sometimes?
Pretty naturally, I'd say. I mean, this is the first one that I've done. So we gave away a Kentucky Home T-shirt. So we have some merch T-shirts that are branded Kentucky Home from my first single that came out. They've got Kentucky Home on the front in the same font as the album cover, and then the back has a quote on it from the song, from the chorus
Uh,
of the song. And then they won some other stuff that's like from local um, Kentucky Proud uh, businesses. So it was cool to be able to kind of partner with some Kentucky Proud businesses to get some Kentucky merch out to people.
well, and you never in this podcast may never know. Maybe one day we Trey and I collab together, and we got some. We might have something coming for this podcast. Who knows?
Yeah,
But
we'll
we
throw
might.
a little tease out.
Yeah, we might have to put a little something together.
We
That's no
might.
plug at all. But
Yeah.
you talked a little bit about in 2020 how you were playing gigs, in honky tonks in 2020. what was that like for the music industry at that time? Because that was the year that we don't speak about. You know,
Right.
when we all got told to go home, kiss your wives, and hide under the bed. And if anybody knocks on your door, crawl under the bed.
Right.
William Golden says it better than I do, but Golden, he's a great guy, and um, I just want to get your opinion on what it was like. Was it weird for you from other shows, or what was that like for you?
Man, I had only played a couple of like coffee shop gigs before 2020. Um, and so in the fall of 2020, I had reached out. There was a bar in Williamsburg that had posted on Instagram that they were looking for talent to come in and play music. And I said, I've done this before. I think it could be fun. Let's, let's try this out. So that was my first real experience playing in a bar. And I mean, like anything during 2020, it was a little odd. Playing to people where you can't see their facial expressions because they've got a mask on, or things were at 3/4 capacity, or 33% capacity or whatever. And so that was it was really weird, but I think it provided me an opportunity to kind of cut my teeth, to really sit down and understand what people want to hear
Mm.
and how I can deliver that. Because, like I said, we were playing 3-hour sets, and I mean we had several gigs through that, but it felt like there was something missing, and that's when we started to kind of explore that country space.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about, you obviously grew up in church, so, you know, there's that gospel influence there. But talk to us a little bit about when you first started having to listen to country music. Who were some of those first people that you had listened to?
Yeah, so I was a big Chris Stapleton fan, still am. One of the best, in my opinion. Um, his I talked about this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, but his rendition of the national anthem at the Super Bowl was just, I mean, I don't I would be fine if I never heard anybody else sing it ever again. If he just did it at every event that we were at. But um I really I had heard about Luke Combs, and Luke Combs was one that I really started listening to first. I think I want to say "When It Rains It Pours" was maybe like the first song that I listened to from him. My wife and I were on a trip back, and I was like, I've heard about this Luke Combs guy. Let's give him a listen. Um, so that kind of bled into, I'm a big fan of Jordan Davis. I'm a big fan of Morgan Wallen. I'm a huge fan of Hardy, where he kind of blends country and hard rock. And so I would say, in terms of getting me started in country, it was a lot of Chris Stapleton and Luke Combs.
Yeah, and the national anthem. I got to touch on that for a minute. I have never had. uh, I watch the Super Bowl every year, and it's yeah, I do it with some of my best friends in the entire nation, and I'll never forget watching that Super Bowl and the way that Chris might have just thought that he would have just done it his way, but he has a voice that is second to none. Really, I can't think of anybody who has a voice comparison to his.
Yeah,
And I remember watching the Philadelphia Eagles head coach start crying, and Jason Kelsey with the Eagles, and a few other people start crying, and it never really dawned on me, but people. I'm not gonna go down this route, but I am for a second. You never really think, you never know how free our country is until a guy like Chris Stapleton sings it, and
right.
and we're not gonna not talk about his guitar playing. You know,
Oh, yeah,
that dude can shred a guitar.
he can, and it's like, no, it's almost, I compare his guitar playing to somewhat BB King-ish, where
Hmm.
it's not the flashiest, but he knows what he's doing. He's
Yeah,
not John Mayer just noodling and shredding all over everything, but
he does.
Right, but his notes mean something, and he knows what he's doing with every note. And
Yeah,
I think he's a really underrated guitar player.
yeah, and people say, oh, Brad Paisley or Keith Urban or Vince Gill, like, okay, yes, those are good, but look at Chris Stapleton. Like, look at his career before, he went country, because he was with a group called the Steelwood Drivers or the Steel Drivers.
Steel Drivers, yeah.
Yeah, and that was pretty much of a bluegrass type of feel.
Hmm.
And to see Chris go from bluegrass to country, and I even think that Sometimes I Cry off the Travelers record, that last song on that Travelers record was a blues song.
Hmm.
I think that he could do pretty much anything, and I even think he did a song with Pink, and
He did. He did. He
yeah,
did one with Taylor Swift too, I think.
yeah. So this man can go anywhere, and Luke Combs too. They can both expand their genres, and it's just amazing to watch that. No matter what they are going to be doing, they're representing country music.
Right.
They're representing or country music with everything that they have,
Hmm.
and that's what I love. Like, you know, I love those old guys like Merle Haggard, Haggard, Johnny Cash,
Hmm.
Willie Nelson, and Waylon Jennings, and the whole but the originals. But there's something about Morgan Wallen or Hardy or Jelly Roll or some of these artists that people are just now getting attached to, that I think they will never be as good as the OGs in country music, so to speak. But they bring their flair of country music. Like, I love
Yeah.
listening to Jelly Roll, because I mean, Jelly Roll, that's bad mofo dude right there.
Well, you look at somebody like Jelly Roll, who's come from like, I mean, and I didn't start really following him until recently. And now we do one of his songs in our full band set. We do Son of a Sinner in our full band set. But you look at him, and he doesn't look the part of the traditional country guy. Even Hardy, to an extent, doesn't look super country. He doesn't super lean into that. Um, but but both of them understand how to write good songs.
Yeah.
And I think that is where, in Morgan Wallen as well, he's not super traditional, but he's taking even this new record that he just put out, the One Thing at a Time. He kind of blends country and what inspired him as a kid, which was like hip hop. And
Yeah.
so you've got some songs that are very country, you've got some songs that are very hip hop, and the same with Hardy. He loves country, he loves writing country. That's how he's made his name. But his inspiration and him, his kind of influences are all hard rock influences. So he
Yeah.
wants to do both.
And that's the thing, like, we've seen, like, with Jason Aldean and with Ludacris, music, them come together. And I
Hmm.
think Jason Aldean, I don't think that there was more of an original guy who did, um, not covers, but who blended rap and country music with none other like Charlie Daniels with The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Right.
I mean, that was the first guy who put rapping and country music, so to speak, for me anyway. But then you have guys like Jason Aldean bringing in Ludacris on Dirt Road Anthem, and
Hmm.
then you have Dirt or not Dirt Road, but Brantley Gilbert and Jelly Roll doing Son of the Dirty South.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love seeing those collaborations with other country music artists, because I heard Jason Aldean say it the best. He said, you know, at the bottom line, it's not about the dollar. It's not about the dollar for country music artists. Like, say, if you and I did something together, whether it be music related or podcast related, like a giveaway.
Mm.
Uh,
Wink, wink.
yeah. Uh, Coming soon. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, um, but no, we don't look at it as money. We see it as, if it's good for you, then it's good for you, and it brings attention to you. And if it's good for me, we support each other.
Hmm.
and country music, Hank Williams Jr. said it best. He said country music singers have always been a real close family.
Yeah.
Now, there's always been tension sometimes in country music, but we learn how to forgive and to forget in country music, and I think that's why country music is. Um, I think that's why it's one of the most relatable genres of music.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think about even a song like that I'm sure you have heard my song I Don't Want to Leave This Town.
Yeah,
That's one of those songs that in my mind is relatable to a lot of people because everybody has a hometown that they love. Um, but that story and that song is so specific to my family situation
hmm
and the town. I mean, it's about Williamsburg. It's the town that I live in. Every line of that song is absolute truth to me and my family, but it's relatable because everybody has a story about how their parents met or a story about how their family settled into a certain area that they've lived in for you know a century. It's one of those things where now I met my wife in Williamsburg and I talk about that in that song. I actually met my wife at the same place that my grandparents met in Williamsburg. So it's like it's one of those things where it's so personal, but it's so relatable.
yeah,
Um, and I think country music is relatable to people because even if they live in a city or they live, in a place that doesn't have red dirt roads and field parties and stuff like that, there are still things that they can relate to because it's not all about that. Sometimes it's about just understanding a relationship or understanding a concept like love or heartbreak or whatever it may be. And I think that's what makes country music so relatable to people who don't live in the country or don't consider themselves country.
yeah. And you have some of the, for me, one of the most underrated people in country music, I honestly have to say, are people that have a one hit wonder. I think of guys like Kip Moore with something about truck.
Hmm.
You know, and you have these artists that have these one hit wonders, and then you don't see them ever again.
Right.
And they're great artists. They are fantastic artists. But you wonder why they don't have as much airplay as some like for me, I always wondered why, for the longest of time, I wondered why uh, Kenny Chesney had a few hit songs and then he disappeared. It
Hmm.
just, I never knew that. But, who do you think is the most underrated country singer of all time?
Man, that's a tough one. I I don't know. So I think that I don't know. I hesitate to say Hardy because I think he's got a pretty good cult following, just
hmm
in terms of like modern country artists. But I also have seen a lot of content out on TikTok or Instagram where people are like a person will be the only one in a section at a Morgan Wallen concert where Hardy's opening for Morgan,
hmm
and they're the only person that knows any of the songs. Those people have no idea who Hardy is except for the fact that he's opening for Morgan Wallen. And I think before this last album that Hardy put out, I would say that he was the most underrated country artist at
Yeah.
this moment because he a lot of the time had just been seen as like Morgan Wallen's songwriter or like Florida Georgia Line's songwriter
Or Bl-
or Blake Shelton's songwriter, right? Like I just think this last album kind of put him on the map a little bit, but before 2022 when he put this album out, or I guess it was earlier this year, before 2023, I would say that he was hands down the most underrated artist out there.
yeah, and and I love how like Riley Green, like how he's using his voice for a platform, and you see all these artists, they have a platform and they're using it, and my thing
Hmm.
is that if you're gonna go, Morgan has one of the strongest fan bases in music today.
Yeah.
I and then I think. Morgan, and I think a lot of people are mad or a bandwagon at Morgan because of, him having to cancel a show. But, my thing is this, is if Morgan had the voice to do it, I'm pretty sure, I'm not pretty sure, I know he would have done it.
Yeah.
Because Morgan, he loves to sing. He
Hmm.
loves to play. That's not called working music, as it's called playing music.
Right.
These are people that make their living playing for a living.
Hmm.
And so, to see people get all mad about Morgan having to take a couple shows off because his doctor told him to have vocal rest, it's just, these are people that love his songs, but it come down to it and cancel a show 5 minutes before, and they're still getting refunded for it. It's just ridiculous, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I see a little bit of both sides because I understand absolutely vocal rest and taking care of his main instrument, right? So his voice is his main instrument. That's one of those things where it's hard because I also get like if I had been at that show, I would have been pissed.
Mm,
Just because not at him. I wouldn't have been like suing him for my, cost to go
yeah.
to the show because they're getting that show rescheduled and stuff. But I mean, when it comes down to it in that situation, like he's got to take care of himself and he's got to take care of because I mean, if he had pushed it, he could have a major vocal injury and have to cancel the rest of the tour.
Hmm.
I also look at somebody like Luke Combs, who the same thing happened, right? He played a song, played a show somewhere. He went out the next night and in tears said, this is not going to be 100% show. I'm not going to be able to finish this show out the way that I want to. I'm just going to tell you straight up. We're going to refund everybody's money. We're going to play as much of the show as we can. And if I can't do it anymore, I just can't do it anymore. But, I hate to have to do this. I think that there should have been, I think to do that right, it was a little bit of a shock to everybody's system to just put a message up on the screen. Whereas I think personally, if it were me, I would want to go out on stage and say, hey, listen, everybody, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming out. I know that you have sacrificed to be here. You sacrificed your time and your money, and I appreciate that more than you'll ever know. I can't do this tonight. My doctor has ordered me on vocal rest. And I think that's where the rumors came in of him partying and them having to take him to the hospital because he was too drunk. I think because he didn't make an appearance and own up to it in the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's where that ended up.
Yeah. But yeah, man, and I appreciate you coming on the show, and what a great podcast, and we love you guys and love one another. Trey, we'll talk back here real soon, buddy. I appreciate you, man.
Hey, I appreciate it. Sounds good, man.
All right, buddy. We love you guys. Love one another. Until the next one, stay strong.